So welcome everyone to First Wednesdays with Master Coach Gretchen Heido. Today is, well, the summer already kicked off, but we're going to be turning up the heat in this session. We have a lot of things to go through, from stepping up your coaching into a profession and finding successful coaching in your life and other areas of life. We're going to dig into so much. And Gretchen is super excited for today, as am I. And we're going to head it off with giving this back to Gretchen.
All right. Well, hi, everybody. So happy to see all of you. I hope you had a great 4th of July. So tonight, like Christy said, we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about your professionalism as a coach. We're going to talk about the way that you show up in the world. We're going to talk about what it means to be successful in coaching. And at the end, we're going to talk about my program, The Roundtable, and Marissa is here, and she was a participant from last year. And she's going to give you kind of the real world view of what it was like to be in the Roundtable and answer all of your questions as we go. Now, the other part about tonight is that if you have something that's going on in your business right now that you have questions around, something that's happening with a client, something that you're unsure of, we're a smaller group tonight. Please feel free to ask the questions that you want to ask, and we will make this a great session for you so that you are able to move forward in your businesses as we go. Sound good? Okay, well, it's really nice to see all of you. I appreciate you having your cameras on. Hi, Gloria. Thanks for joining us. Good to see you. So one thing that when I am talking to any of my coaches, be it the Stairway to Six program or the Roundtable program, that we spend some time on is the idea of professionalism. And the reason for that is when you decide to be a professional in this coaching industry, what happens is you will take on a different presence. When we think of coaching as a hobby or just something we're doing in addition to our day job, we don't seem to show up in the same way that we do when we decide that it is our profession and something that we want to be paid for. And so I'd love to hear from all of you. You can either unmute or put it in the chat. Scale of 1 to 10, how professional do you feel like you are as a coach? What's your level? All right, so Sherry says she's a 7. We've got a 6. Who else is brave enough to share? What is your level of professionalism? A 6. Okay, another 7 here. Yeah, 8.5. I love that. Marissa, you're a 10. You're a 10, but it's okay if you feel like an 8.5. Yeah. And the reason that this is important is because it will show you where your own mindset is. You know, when we are showing up as a 5, as a 4, as a 3, really anything less than an 8, what we're doing is telling ourselves, it's more of a hobby. I hope that this works. Well, I'm going to give it a go, but we'll see what happens. How many of you can relate to that? I'll give it a go. We'll kind of see what happens. Maybe this is going to work out for me. And so as I sit with many, many coaches day in and day out, you know, I teach for one of the coaching schools as well. One of the things that is detrimental is this idea that they hope they're going to make it. The coaching industry, while it's based on hope for our clients of who they might be, it is not based on hope for us. We have to decide that it's what we're doing and make our mark at it. And Ted, I see you nodding your head. I see some smiles on this because it's really just different. You know, if I got up and hoped every day that I'd have clients, well, that's nice, but I really probably wouldn't have any. We have to take professional actions to be a professional. So I'd love to hear from you. I'm going to open the floor. What are some of the professional actions that you take right now to build your coaching practice? Ted, go ahead.
I'm not sure how professional it is, but some people are impressed. Calendly is such a, number one, it's so efficient to be able to send someone a link and have them be able to get on your calendar. So for my own time, but to them, often they're very impressed that I have these tools. So that's a very simple example.
Good. Okay. Fantastic. What else? What's something that you do as a professional to step into being a professional coach?
I'll go. This is Judy. I introduce myself as a coach with my coaching credentials whenever I'm in any kind of an environment, whether it's business or social.
Great. And that way you just step into it. It's like, hey, this is who I am. This is what I do. So you're already taking ownership of your title as a coach. Fantastic. Who else? What do you do to be professional in the coaching industry? Sherry.
Kind of what Judy, I have a full-time job and then I do coaching on the side and I want to flip that. At first I used to say, well, you know, I'm a director for a home infusion company, but on the side I coach. Now I don't even do that. I just say I'm a coach. I'm not even bringing in what I do full time. So that's changing that mindset.
That's some big growth. That's some big growth, you know. And so here's the deal. When it comes to coaching, yes, it's about our title. Yes, it's about our time. We want to make sure, though, that we are taking actions to build our business. You know, coaching's only one part of being a coach. That's what we all know at this point. Unless you work for a coaching firm where they do all of the placement and they're the ones that get you the clients, there's a whole other business development part that needs to happen to be a professional coach. And for all of us as well, as professionals, we would like to charge professional fees. We'd like it to be that we're not struggling as coaches in our profession monetarily. So that's something important to think about as well. So when I'm thinking about professional activities that you can be doing in the coaching world to really show up as a coach, one of them is being a master of your time. Being a master of your time. And so what do I mean by that? It's knowing what you are going to do so that you're not time debting. You know, and what that means, it's kind of like when we use a credit card and we just use the credit card. We're not really sure if we have the money to purchase it. It's more like, yeah, I'll get that and I'll figure it out. Time debting is the same thing, that we wake up, we have a certain number of hours, and then they're gone. And we don't know how we spent them because we weren't sure, or we weren't clear about where we were going to spend our time and how we were going to spend it. When you are vague with your time, you have no time. So time and money are two ways that you can really be a professional in the coaching world. And so when it comes to your time, a good rule of practice is to think about how many clients do you want to have, how many potential clients do you want to have connection calls each week? What amount of time is it going to take to get those on the calendar? How many hours do you need to have on your calendar to actually coach each week? How many do you need for admin tasks each week? And here's where some coaches get messed up. Doing the admin is easier than anything else. So they do a lot of time doing admin, even if they hate it, and not a lot of time doing outreach, because that's the place where they feel like, who am I to say that I'm a coach? So this is an area that if you get really diligent, you will notice that your speedometer, the faucet that we turn on of having coaching clients, goes up substantially when you have dedicated time that you're spending on that. So let me pause there. What are you hearing? What are you hearing about time? Yeah, Ted.
I'm the shy one here. It's always, plan your work and work your plan. So have a plan and stick to it. Have structure to ensure that you are doing enough biz dev and those things, and then measure it, of course, so that you can tell if you're improving or not.
That's it. That's it. What else? Who else? What else are you hearing?
I'm also hearing about intentionality.
Yes.
Setting up for not only the types of time that you want to use, but really putting coaching forward in your calendar when you're thinking about use of time.
That's exactly it. It's important. We want to make sure that we're being intentional, because it's not enough just to block it out and say, oh, I'm going to work on my business Monday through Thursday. If you don't know the actions that you're going to take, you're really not going to do anything. You'll check your Facebook. If you're like me, you might watch a J-Lo video, whatever it might be, anything but doing the thing. You might think about that closet that needs to be cleaned. It's really easy to not be disciplined as entrepreneurs. Hi, Phil. I saw you raise your hand. What did you want to add?
Yeah, hi.
Hey.
One of the things that I've done is, because I have, a job that, brings in more money, and my coaching always been sort of secondary, is I sort of follow the 80-20 rule. So in the first 3 days of the week, I really focus on that job, 80%, 20% coaching. And then the rest of the week, I really flip that. I sort of put my coaching hat, I put my pants on as a coach, so to speak.
Right.
And I really try to do coaching activities, connect with people over, create conversations, do coaching sessions, study coaching, like everything that I can that really I would do if I was coaching full time. And I think that's really helped me sort of shift my mindset on those days of, okay, I'm a coach. What does a coach do? You know, what do I need to do? Do I need to prep my background? Do I need to get a better camera? Like, you know, what improvements can I do? And so that's been really, really helpful for me. And I'm hoping that, you know, that might be 3 days a week, 3 and 3, and eventually maybe it'll be 4, and eventually it'll be 5.
You know, Phil, I really want to commend you for that. And here's something that you said that I find so interesting. Right now, it's that 80-20 rule, with 20 being the coaching and 80 being the thing that you do that's earning you the other money. Here's the piece of this. As you grow, I like that you're saying then it'll be half and half, then a little more than half, and then the 80-20 is flipped, and then there's no more 80-20, it's 100% coaching. For everyone, why this is important is you have to come up with your plan. A lot of us have jobs before we start coaching. I was a publicist. I had a full-time career in PR and a PR company. I had to figure out how was I going to make the leap. Sometimes making the leap means it has to get really uncomfortable financially, and that you just decide you are not going to pick up other business in the thing that you're doing, the thing that's your number one income provider, because it forces you then, it's like a checkmate. Am I going to do this or not? Now, you don't have to do it that way. The way that I did it was, first, it was the 80-20, like Phil is saying, and it was mostly, you know, public relations. Then it became about 50-50. And then as my clients for PR were exiting, I didn't renew them. I just decided I'm not going to renew them. I'm going to make enough room for coaching. And I did it, you know, and that for me is when I decided I was a professional coach. It wasn't when I was doing 50-50. It definitely wasn't when I was doing 80-20. It was when the doors to my PR company closed and was like, okay, yep, I better make this work. I'm a professional coach. And I had to think about what were the things I needed to do that. And so one thing that I would offer to all of you when you're thinking about setting up your calendar on a weekly basis is it's math. The more people you reach out to, the more possibilities you have for potential client calls. So the first thing when I get coaches that want to work with me, when they say, I don't have any clients, is, well, let me see your calendar. And it's like, oh, let me see your calendar. What do you want to see my calendar for? Well, let's see, how many people are you actually reaching out to? So mathematically for yourself, you can do this exercise at home. Take a look at your calendar. How many people are you reaching out to on a weekly basis to make sure that your calendar the following week is full? Yeah. Anyone have any comments or questions about that? Ted, go for it.
Well, but I hear you completely. So I'm full-time at this. I have at least a 1-hour slot every day where I reach out to people. And my goal is to at least have 5, 6, 7 conversations a week, but I have to reach out to at least 10 a day to have that happen. And it's just one of those things. And some are follow-ups, but it's in there every day and you got to do it.
Yeah, you just have to do it. Marissa, can you share about your experience with turning on the faucet?
Yeah, definitely. Similar to Ted, and I love the phrase that, or the word that Judy chose to use, intention, like having time on the calendar, not just for the client sessions and for the prospect sessions, which is like what I would love for all of my days to be filled up with, but actually for the outreach and for planning, who am I going to reach out to? Who would I love to coach? Who haven't I connected with in a while? How can I add value to them? How can I send something that's more than just like, hey, just checking in, but something that's more deeply thoughtful and valuable for them? So when Gretchen and I were coaching one-on-one prior to the roundtable, there was a 3 or 4 week gap when both of us took some vacation time. And my homework assignment was to turn the faucet on, so to speak, to try to build up the business. I was just getting it going. And so I had a spreadsheet with all of my contacts in it. At the time, it was probably, I don't know, around 150 people. Now it's probably double that, all organized by how I know them, when I last spoke to them, notes about who they are. And I, in a very organized fashion, reached out to people, shared what I was up to, tried to add value if I could, didn't get discouraged when people didn't write back. A lot of people don't. I also have had people write back like 8 months later or 10 months later, hey, I was thinking about you and now I need a coach, or my uncle needs a coach. So like building up the emotional endurance to not feel discouraged by a no or by a ghost. And it really helped. I'm still, I'll call it like harvesting fruits from the seeds that were planted a year ago. It was like one big burst. And now the ongoing outreach is more weekly or 2 times a week of blocks of time that I'm doing that proactive outreach, because the rest is re-enrollments and referrals and inbounds.
I love that. I really appreciate you sharing it. You know, when we did go on those vacations last summer, when I came back, she told me how many people she had reached out to and what it looked like. And she's completely correct. She is still benefiting from that work that she did then. So here's the way to look at outreach. For many of us, we start collecting evidence of all the reasons that people don't want to hear from us, or why we really, have a lot of competition, or how we're not good enough, or what am I going to say? And we're dealing in our story of lack or inefficiency. The mind is always looking for ways to build more of our identity on lack rather than on abundance. It's just what it's meant to do because it's out there trying to protect us. But if you flip that and you look at each possible connection as an opportunity to serve, the way that you reach out will be different. So it's not the possibility of, can I get your money? Because that's really, people can feel it when you send that email. It's not a, can I get your money email? It's really a, what do I know about this person and how can I serve email? And when you do that and you think of it with the spirit of connection instead of a spirit of what am I going to get from this, you will be amazed by how much comes back to you. And I'll give you an example. Sometimes I'll connect with people that I find interesting on LinkedIn. I'm not really big on doing a lot of social media outreach, but when I go in and I do some of it, I'll take a look and I only reach out if there is something about the person that's truly interesting to me. And so the other day I saw someone and she said, she's a coach and she really specializes in gospel coaching. And I was like, what the heck is gospel coaching? That sounds awesome. And I just asked her, I said, what the heck is gospel coaching? It sounds awesome. And she said, what an interesting way to introduce yourself to me on LinkedIn. I don't think anyone has ever just said that, but I'm glad because it means that you really read it. And then she told me what it was. And we had a normal human to human conversation. In that, I found out who she serves. She found out who I serve. Maybe at some point there will be some plan of working together or helping one another. But when I was thinking about it, when I reached out to her, it really was with that spirit of curiosity. And it wasn't so much with the spirit of like, haha, I've got this roundtable program coming up. What do you do with the gospel? Come spread it to all of my coaches. I can hardly wait. It was truly, I was just curious. And it's interesting because we both shared a resource with one another. It's something that I didn't have before that I hadn't heard of. It's a great exercise. And I shared something equally of value with her. And so it's just nice to start building community because that's the other piece with coaching. We're a commodity that is service driven. It's heart-based. It's not a one and done. People change all the time, day in and day out. And so when you're thinking of really, how can I serve and what value can I provide? It's never just a, hey, thinking about you, how are you doing? That doesn't really provide anything. Instead, it's, hey, I was thinking about you and here's why. Got something for you. Here's a podcast I listened to that I really thought of you minutes 3 to 5, or I really thought about the thing you're going through during this section. If it's someone that you've never met before, but they're interesting to you, say why. It's really appreciative to the person receiving it that they're like, oh, you weren't just trying to spam me with your program. You weren't just doing this whole, let's be LinkedIn connections. I get those things every day. I can't stand it. And I know that that's the way the world works, but if you have something just a little bit different that shows you spent time, that's service. So what comes to mind for you when you're thinking of how can I serve a potential client?
One thing that I have done so far, in connection call, I hear some of the stories of like problems or issues that they are facing, and I reflect on it and start writing a blog post about that. And then once I created the blog, for example, let's say if it is about career transition, what are some of the questions that you need to think through and reflect upon? I wrote that about, and I shared that article that I wrote to them. So that's how I kind of expanded my content development plus my connection.
And multiple purposes there too, Gloria, because it also helps to make you an expert in your field. You're sharing an article that you wrote about a certain topic that's going to help this person with them in mind, but it's your article and you can share that in other places as well. Good job. Good job. What else? What else comes to you when you think of client connection and value?
When I'm connecting in person or reconnecting with people in person, so not like the digital outreach, which is probably most of it, but in person, just using the skill that we all have as coaches of deep listening to just really listen to somebody. I think this has probably always been true, but the pandemic's made it worse. People are just not truly deeply listened to in their lives commonly, maybe never. And so to be the one person that they can share something, whether it's deep or shallow, and feel like all I'm doing is like listening. I'm not thinking about what I'm going to say next. I'm not thinking about pitching them anything of any kind. Like I'm really just listening really deeply. And if I have something to offer to help, I will. I feel like that makes such a good connection. It makes the experience memorable for them. It makes them an advocate of whatever I'm up to, maybe for themselves, maybe for someone else, maybe in the moment, maybe down the road. But I find that listening is a good and easy, like, default setting that helps the business and is just fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really true that seen, valued, and heard. We want our potential clients and our clients to feel seen, valued, and heard. Sometimes another good way to connect is when you're talking to someone and you learn more about them, what do they need? Judy and I were talking the other day and she mentioned something about like personality tests and whatever it was. And I just happened to have one that was a good fit to send to her just to take a look at. Whether it was interesting or not interesting, I remembered that we had talked about it. And it's like, hey, here you go. And she can do what she wants with it. But it had something to do with what she had said. I do this with my clients as well, that we might be talking, there's something that they need. Maybe I have a resource or a book or an article, I'll send it. And that's the way that I like to connect and give value to my clients. And it's also exactly like Marissa said, it's the deep listening. And I'll think about people in between sessions too, even if it's someone that I haven't worked with. There's a past client that I was able to connect with, and she and we coached together probably 4 or 5 years ago at this point, but we did a good reconnection call because people change all the time. And I got to hear what was going on in her life and then offer her a session on something that could really be helpful to her. Will we work together again? I don't know, but I really meant it when I offered it. And so that's the other part too. Intentionality was mentioned, that we really want to be intentional with every interaction that we're doing with our clients and potential clients. What's this sparking for everybody? Love to hear. Yeah, Jill.
So I'm very curious to see, what's your percentage of like phone calls to emails? Is email your basic outreach?
Great question. Great question. So let me think about that. Let me put myself in a newer coach's shoes, because now it's typically that it's almost all referrals for me. But when I was newer and still really looking for clients and those sorts of things, I would first reach out through email most of the time. And then I would wait to get a response back. Then I'd invite the person to a telephone conversation or Zoom. When I first started there, Zoom wasn't really a thing yet. So I'd invite them to the phone conversation and I'd send them some prelim questions, some things for them to think about to be targeted in our conversation. And I'd spend probably 30 to 45 minutes with them on that call. And it was really just questions like, what are you wanting in the next 3 to 6 months? What's exciting to you? And how are you getting in your own way? And I'd get to know them a little bit. If it felt right at the end and there was some interest, then I would offer them an actual coaching conversation. So I wasn't trying to coach, sell, and get to know you all at once. Before I knew what to do, I was trying to do that. And my close rate was terrible because it's just too fast. So then I'd have a second conversation with them where they really got to experience coaching. And I explained to them what coaching is in the first conversation, because most of the time people don't really understand what it is. They don't get it. They're going off of kind of like I think it might be like therapy or it's consulting in some way, but they're not exactly sure. So I never talk about what coaching is. I want to show someone what coaching is. So that was more like 80% email reach out. Then I talked to the people that came back through, and then, we do coaching once they became a client. I didn't do very much cold calling, actual pick up the phone like, hey, how you doing? I almost always warmed it up first with an email or a video text.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. What are you doing these days, Jill? Where are you at with what your outreach?
I'm Honestly, not much. I've been very lax about it. But I've now figured out my niche, which is retirement coaching for women. And now I feel like, okay, now I've got, when you're doing life coaching, it's like all over the place. And I really needed to kind of figure it out. So I feel a lot more motivated now to do that, because now I can understand where to go with it,
Yeah. And I like what you said there too, because this is part about being a professional is we have to know how to spot our potential clients. And so for you, it sounds like you figured out who it is you want to work with. Another way to do that too isn't so much by niche, it's by personality traits. Who are the types of people that you enjoy? So I like working with driven, ambitious people. They can do anything for a job or have no job, but I like them if they're driven and they're ambitious. I don't usually work with the people who are not really doing much in life. I'm the one that if you really want change, then you're going to hire me for that. And there's different people for different things. All of the answers are okay. And then sometimes it's like you were saying right now, Jill, that that you're working with women and a certain kind of woman. So either way is fine, but we want to be able to sense who our client is so that when we're talking to them, we know, would we like to offer them a connection call with us? Are we listening for how we can help? That's the other part, is we need to be really good detectives with our best listening ears, is what I call them. Marissa, were you going to say something? Your box lit up.
Yeah, I was just going to add something that Jill's question reminded me of a lesson learned at the beginning that I thought might be helpful for the group. I also do email outreach at the beginning for almost everyone. But at the beginning, I was doing a lot more email communication, like back and forth. Whereas now, especially if I see that there's potential, I try to get a phone call or Zoom right away. So early on, I would explain what coaching is in an email and what I was up to and packages before even having a conversation. I'm sure because I was just playing a little bit scared, and that felt less vulnerable. And so pivoting to, yes, starting with that email outreach to kind of drop the hook, drop the line in, but then very quickly, once I had a fish on the line, some type of interest, having a conversation either in person or on the phone really helped to close more business and deepen more connections. So it can start in email, but in my experience, staying in email too long isn't of service to you or them.
Yeah, good. Who else has a comment here? Okay, good. Go. Tell us.
I have found that the more I try to act professionally, the less they respond. In other words, I get to something personal as soon as possible and something vulnerable. So my girlfriend and I, we've started dancing on the beach to ecstatic dance, something I would never admit to someone, like, oh God. And people could say nothing or, oh my God, I love dancing. And anything I throw out that's personal, kind of vulnerable, that they either say that's nice or it's what, but more often than not, there's a connection. So that's just the strongest thing, is to go with personal connection, and the door flies open to other conversations. So not having business conversations works.
Great. And I love that that's your experience. Okay. So here's the deal. The more you decide that you're a professional in coaching, the more that your calendar reflects it, the more that your outreach reflects it, the more calls you're going to have. Now, the way that you may want to think about setting up your calls is the way that I suggested earlier, with first, it's kind of just a connection call. There's no pressure in a connection call. It's like dating. You do not have to get married. It can be a really bad coffee date and you never see the person again. No problem. Or it might be that you're falling in love and you see the person again, but it's very low risk. And what I like to do with this is I like to have some parameters. Those questions that I told you about, I send them to everyone that I'm going to have a connection call with, because it will show me their level of readiness. And remember, when you're a professional, you're not just taking everything that comes in. Anyone that might show up and call you, you're only taking the people that really excite you, that you connect with, that would be a good fit for who you are and who you could really serve. In the beginning, I remember getting some people that were not driven or ambitious. And I thought, oh, but they want to pay me. They want to work with me. Great. This will be great. I dreaded every single time I had to coach them. And sure, did I give them a service? I did, but it wasn't as good as it could have been. It just wasn't as good as it could have been because I wasn't very excited about them doing nothing, or the ones who would come and expect me to know what they were going to work on. In the beginning, I wasn't really clear on what coaching was and wasn't with my clients. So I would just take everything that people sort of wanted to pay, to do. And that didn't end well either, because then I was working harder than they were. And then I wasn't even coaching. And then I was mad by the end of it. Again, not a pretty look, not a good professional look. So as a professional, we're choosy. Now you might be thinking, Gretchen, I don't have enough money to be choosy. You will have enough money to be choosy if you begin to be choosy. It's the chicken or the egg. Be choosy. Not everybody is your client. We all know a good client connection when we have one. It's that part where you're like, yeah, I want to talk to them more. That was interesting. That excited me. I love what this person's about and I love what they're up to. I would really love to be a small part of their bigger vision. That's when we know it's right. When it's like, you don't have to talk to them again. They might not be ready for your kind of coaching yet. And that's the other thing too, that I really go in with as a professional is not everyone's ready to coach with me the first time we talk. Sometimes not even the second time we talk. Sometimes they stalk my Facebook page for a year before they're even open to talking to me. All of it's okay. All of it's okay. But as you have that first connection call and you're really getting to know the person, you do want to go deep, and you want to go deep quick. You want to see what they're going to reveal. So they send you back some answers. They don't need to be long answers. That's okay. We just want to make sure that they can follow a breadcrumb trail and an assignment. And that shows a level of readiness. So they do. Then the next thing you do is you get to know them. I really love to know how they sabotage themselves. How do they get in their own way? Now, it's the first time you've talked to them, probably, for a lot of them. They may or may not be able to go deep. That's okay. Even the ones that we still want to work with that don't go very deep, they might still be a good fit. You're still going to know by asking the questions. And then when you leave space at the end for them to ask you questions, you're really opening it up to what are they interested in? What do they want to know? They might ask you about pricing. They might ask you about how you work. This is where you want to slow yourself and your enthusiasm way down. Because if your energy gets too big at that part, you're going to turn them off or scare them away. So you may want to say something like, I'm so glad we're here, but before we get there, I have a few requirements of my own. And this just shows that you're not a dumpster. You don't take everything that comes your way, right? Not everyone can throw something into your dumpster. It's like, hey, I only work with a certain type of person, and you get to spell out what it is for you. Those of you who have been around me before, mine are you ready and are you committed? And I talk about what it means to be ready. That ready means you are ready for the changes that are going to happen in your life. And committed means it's more than just financial. Are you committed to who you're being called to step into be? Are you committed to the time? Are you committed to what you're going to need to do outside of our sessions? Only they know if it's a good time for them. If they've said yes to both, then I tell them, another requirement that I have is I coach everyone before we decide that we're going to work together. Are you open to that? Usually they're like, yeah, I'm open to that, because it feels very giving, and it is very giving. Now, some new coaches, they'll say, wait, you give it away for free. You've already talked to them for 30 minutes. Now you're going to coach them. I look at it as my own insurance policy. When I coach people, we're going to be together at least 6 months. I want to make sure that it's a good fit and that they were coachable and that I had fun while I was doing it. I also want to make sure that they had fun while it was happening and that they got value. Just because you can get someone to say yes and pay the money, it doesn't mean that they're a good fit, but you don't know until you coach. So let me pause there. What are you hearing in that?
I have a question about the parameters in the connection call.
Yeah, go ahead.
There are some times you just want to connect first, and then catching up with them how they are up to. But I feel like if I send some questionnaire, for example, it feels a little inorganic. Yeah. How do you handle the situation?
So that's great. So here's how it usually goes. The person's reached out to you and they've said like, hey, I'd love to connect. Can I get on your calendar? Or they've been referred to, either way, however it is. That's when you'd say, yes, I'd love to. Can you answer these 3 questions for me? And then we'll get you scheduled. It's going to give me some background information of who you are. That way, when we talk, I can be ready to best serve you. And that way it's not inorganic. Does that feel right to you, Gloria?
Yeah.
Good. And go ahead, Jill.
Yeah. So when you're talking about offering them a few questions, you're going to send them some questions, prelim questions. So you're saying it's just a few?
I send like 3.
Okay.
Just 3.
Okay.
Anything more than 3, people feel like they're doing a long written assignment. They don't want to do it. And the truth is, I don't want to read all that anyway. I really just want to get to know you. It's for me to know, can you follow basic directions?
Okay.
And will you send me back answers that are more than yes, no, question mark, like that? You're already not ready or willing for coaching at the level that we all coach at if you can't answer with a few sentences. Sometimes I'll even just say, hey, send me a long rambling email about where you're at in your life. What's getting in your way and what are you hoping for? And they can just blah, 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 blah. So it can be either where you bullet point them. It can be just send me an email. You get to decide on your own based on your personality and the way that you like to connect, what you'd like to know. For you, for the target group that you're working with, you might have one really specific question that's like your linchpin question that you ask that it's like, this is going to be your telling point. You know, for me, it's always, how do you sabotage yourself? I am far more interested in that than your dream or your biggest desire, because you can't get it if you keep sabotaging yourself.
Okay. Great.
Yeah, good. What other questions do you have right now for anyone in the group? Or thoughts that you want to throw out on the table? Yeah.
I have a question. So Gretchen, you know this, but part of what I'm looking at right now is I've been consulting in the social sector for over a decade, and I'm interested in moving beyond that sector to do coaching. And so it sounds like all of you, when you've been talking about having contact lists, I have a huge contact list, but that contact list is all in the sector where I've been working. So I'm just wondering about ideas or approaches when you're really looking to advance into a new market.
Yeah, I love this question. I had the same thing when I was getting out of PR. Everyone who knew me from PR. It was a very, it was tech is what I was working in PR. The first thing that I did though, is I did let them know, hey, you know me as a publicist, but I've recently added coaching to my list of services. And is because of our business relationship, I want to gift, and then you decide who in the company you'd like to gift it to, 3 sessions with me. I got into so many corporations being a corporate coach that way, and they already knew me. So for you, they already know you in this way as of consultant. It's not, and you and I talked about it, very hard to then pivot into coach and to just say, hey, I know you know me in this way, but here's something else that I actually do. I'd love to gift you a session or 2 sessions so that you can check it out.
But that, I'm sorry, maybe I'm not following you, but gifting sessions to whom? To the person you're saying, not to the person you already know?
It can be to the person that you already know. Sometimes that's the best person, or maybe it's to their CEO, or maybe it's to someone in the HR department. This is where you get strategic and you think about, is this person the person in the company that can make the decisions? So when we have someone that's lower than management level, they're never going to be the one that gets to make the coaching decision. So anyone that you're gifting it to, we want to make sure they're manager, director, HR level, C-suite level, so that they can really see, you know, what it is that you do. You can also say to your rising star, if you're reaching out, like, let's say to an HR person in the company, you can say, you know, who do you see as your rising star that would really benefit from some coaching? Does that answer the question for you, Judy?
So I totally understand the approach, but I'm not making the bridge between the universe of people that I know and the universe of people that I don't yet know.
Well, I would start with the universe of people that you know and tell them what they don't yet know about you, which is that you coach.
But that I coach in the business sector.
Yeah.
Or
you might even decide that you coach in their sector. You know, we can look at who's on your list, who are these types of people, and what's the right message. This is the other thing too, is it's never going to be from a blasted email that you get the connections. Right. It's really going to have to be that you look through, and we'll work on this together too, kind of one by one, of who would I love to coach that's on this list? Who on this list might know 1 or 10 people that they might refer me to if I told them in this certain bucket, it's what I'm looking for. So I always wish that it was as easy as just press the button and send it out to the whole list, but it never is. It's always kind of that one by one. But my guess is, Judy, with all of the people that you're already in contact with, you have more clients than you're going to know what to do with. Okay, good. Ted, go ahead.
Just a follow-up thought to Judy. I get it. I was a consultant for a long time, and my previous clients just couldn't think of me differently. Just one of those. They wanted me to come up with the solutions as a consultant, and as a coach, it's often different. But still, a useful technique has been, just sharing why I'd made my change, and that on their behalf, because of a professional relationship, I'd be happy to grant someone they know, the ability to have a coaching opportunity. And it's like a peer sort of gift to make them look good. And that gives them the opportunity to say, I just had it happen today. I'd love to talk to you about some challenges I've got. Great, let's do that. I thought.
Something else that can be really helpful too is, let's say that there's a certain target market that you want, and maybe you don't know them yet. You just don't have this sector. And Judy, I hear that that's what you're saying. It's people maybe outside of it. You can do a survey. And what you do is you tell them, you reach out to some people that are very interesting to you in this target market that you're hoping for. They're probably on LinkedIn where you can find them. And you say, hey, I'm a coach. This is the kind of person I'm coaching. And I'm doing a survey on trends in whatever the area is that this person's in. So it could be on female entrepreneurs who are up to big moves, something. And you can just ask, I'm wondering, what are you seeing? And ask 3 really targeted questions, and then see, are they willing to get on the phone with you for 15 minutes? Most of the time people are, and a lot of those people become your client or a good seed planter. So that's something else that you can do. Anyone else have a question or a comment?
I have another question.
Yeah, go
so
ahead.
How do you translate gifted coaching into paid? How do you transition the conversation?
Yeah, really, really good. So I don't transition the conversation. I wait for the potential client to ask. And then if they do ask, remember, I've already had the email connection. Then I've had a connection call with them. Now we're at the part where I'm coaching them. Almost always they're going to ask. I've never had anyone not ask. It doesn't mean I've worked with all of them, but people ask. And when they ask, that's where you get to go over how you work and what they can expect in coaching, your pricing, and so on. If you feel like they are a good candidate for you, you can propose. I don't propose to everyone who I coach with. But that's always how, we slow down to speed up. Yeah, Sherry.
I think with that, how do you follow up with a potential client? You've coached them, you've done your, session, and, they've asked information, you send them the package or your pricing and email and everything else. And then they just kind of don't do anything. It's like closing that loop. Like, what's the best way to close the loop without being creepy about, you want to serve them, but you don't want them to feel you're all about money.
The first thing is, I never send anything written. I'm going to talk to you about it while we're talking, because people get very uncomfortable about money. We're going to have the uncomfortable conversation together. So it's not some big secret like, oh, I'll send you over my prices. Instead, I make my highest recommendation. After everything we've talked about and what you're telling me you want, my highest recommendation is, and that's where you decide, is it a 6-month program, a 3-month program? What is it that they need? And then I tell them why. We're going to work on this vision that you have. We're going to create a strategy around it. We're going to look at the blocks. We want to look at the skills, and we want to look at where your energy is being drained. And that's what we're going to do together. Now, from there, when they say they have to think about it, great, they should think about it. It's a big decision. And who else do they need to consider and talk to? Talk to that person. If you get someone who's like, yep, I'm ready to go, tell them to sleep on it. Make sure that you're both still a yes. That way it slows it down. Now, let's say that it's a corporation and you do need to send prices, because with corporations, that's the way it works. You send it. If you don't hear back, what I like to do is, and I would do this with any client as well. Maybe it's not even a corporation, but they've left you on, yeah, let me think about it. I will email and just say, hey, I'd love to close the loop on this. Wondering, where are you at? And there's no pressure in it. Where are you at? And most of the time too, if people are not emailing you, it's because they don't want it. So, but for me to close the loop, I might say, hey, you know what? I'm going to take this off the table for now. When your level of readiness and excitement is 1% greater than your fear, you're going to know. And that's when you're going to email me. But that's the way you close the loop. And then sometimes like, well, wait a minute. What do you mean? You know, and sometimes you don't hear back or they just say, thank you. All of those are okay. Helpful, Sherry? Good. So I want to leave some time for you guys to ask Marissa questions. You know, Marissa is someone who she started in my roundtable program, and she's my mentee this year, where we're going through a year together and she's learning the ins and outs of business. She has quite a story when it comes to coaching, who she was when she started and where she's at now. And what I'll tell you about the roundtable is it's for coaches who feel like they're professional or they would like to be a professional and they're willing to put in the work to do it. What's great about that program is it's short, it's 5 months, so it's short and long all at the same time. You get the mastermind component from other coaches. So it's not just me giving you some ideas, it's the group, because they're good coaches that are in the group helping each other build their businesses. And then there's smaller pods as well. So maybe you're interested in what someone in the group has had to say. You and that other person can team up and have your own meetings together. And then you get 10 individual coaching sessions with me as well to really work on who you're being, your own personal issues, your business issues, and your own progression as a coach. There's a couple of you already on this call that have joined in the roundtable. It's going to be a great group this year as it was last year. But Marissa, I'm going to open it up to you to kind of talk about it a little bit and then answer people's questions.
Yes, I would be happy to. Delighted to share my experience. I, as Gretchen said, have a great story, which I won't get into all the details, though happy to field questions. I started working with Gretchen in April, 1 month after I started coaching full-time. I had been doing it on the side for several months before that. And so I coached with her one-on-one for a few months, then joined the roundtable, and I've been her mentee for this entire year. Last year set what felt like a stretching, ambitious goal of getting to 6 figures in the calendar year. And with Gretchen's help and the participation in the roundtable, I got there in less than 6 months and almost doubled it by the end of the year. So the proof is in the pudding. I had a lot of benefits from the roundtable. I'll share the 3 biggest ones. First and foremost, and you guys are here for this same reason, Gretchen is a world-class coach and I wanted to work with her. And that's a great way to be able to work with her both one-on-one and in a group setting. I researched a bunch of coaches. I talked to a handful. I knew that she would be the right fit for me. And this was just a way to glean all of her wisdom and experience. So the blend of pure coaching helping me shift my mindset in many areas, business and life, as well as just her consultative experience of like, here's how I would handle this particular situation or this particular situation to keep me moving and on track was invaluable. And then related to the roundtable itself, I like the tennis analogy. If any of you play tennis, like if you play tennis against somebody who is a lot worse than you, your game will suffer. And if you play tennis against somebody who's better than you, your game will likely be elevated. And that's how I felt about the roundtable. I had met a lot of coaches when I first started out, and many of them were struggling. A majority of them were struggling, actually. And so I had these seeds planted in my head that like, this is going to be hard. This is going to be a struggle. Not many coaches make it. Some coaches have like significant others that can foot the bill. I didn't have that. I had a little bit of a sense of worry, and I really wanted to like be in a better tennis league, right? Where like I would get pulled up instead of feeling like I was dragged down. That's exactly what the roundtable provided. I felt like I was in the big leagues only a few months into starting my business, and it helped me to view myself in a different tier and to learn and grow and feel more courageous. I remember in early sessions, people were throwing out numbers of like what they had made in a week or a month or proposal. And I was like, whoa, I am in a different ballgame and I'm into it. It just like gave me a sense of courage and confidence to build that type of business for myself. And then the comments that were talked earlier about just discipline and intention around time, that was really helpful for me too. I had a corporate career before launching the coaching business. when you're in a corporation, many of you guys know, like, you don't really have control over your day. There's like meetings constantly. So you don't really have to think about it. And in coaching, you really have to think about it. And so as a group, we were tracking, and what Gretchen calls her captain's log, number of outreaches per week, number of connection calls per week, number of proposals, dollar amount in proposals. We were all really doing the work in an extremely disciplined way. And I'm competitive, I'm analytical. So I was like, I'm going to be hitting my numbers every single week. No question about it. Christy was helping manage all of the like actual materials to make it really easy. And that helped as well, just accelerate the machine that is now my business, that I feel like operates quite smoothly. And I have some months that are higher than others in terms of revenue, but it really is a well-oiled machine that the round table helped me to build and start operating, and seeing where the kinks are and seeing how to speed it up.
Thank you for that. You know, and I love that analogy of playing tennis. It's so good. And it's really true. I too joined a group that was full of different types of coaches, some far beyond what I had done before, some, you know, close behind or far behind of what I had done. But being with the ones that were ahead of me, it was like, wow, that's what's possible. And having a group that told the truth too. You know, coaching is very secretive about what people make and how you do it and those sorts of things. And so it's all kind of confusing and like, what am I supposed to be making? What am I supposed to be charging? So having a group that really will talk about the numbers and help each other can be quite helpful. So I'll leave it to you and open it up for your questions about that program. I know that some of you have emailed me about it. If you want to ask, now is a good time because you have both myself and Marissa and Christy. Okay, well, if there aren't any questions about that program, no problem. We have a few more minutes. I would love to hear from you what your takeaways are from today and what you plan to put into action between now and August. Who's got something? What'd you get tonight? Sherry.
I'm walking away with the comments on the note, closing the loop. I really like that. And I've been afraid to close the loop on a potential client. And this definitely gives me the tools that I need to do that.
Fantastic. Really glad to hear that. Who else? What'd you get?
I'm motivated. Oh, sorry, Ted, you want to go?
Go ahead.
I'm motivated by this idea of really making the calendar your business assistant, your associate.
Yeah.
I am definitely guilty of being, you know, having my calendar be like that bossy girl I knew in the 7th grade, you know, that kind of is, you know, she's telling me what I'm doing, when I'm doing it. I'm looking for gaps in my own calendar. So, so I'm really taking away this idea of befriending that in the interest of business development.
I love that. That will really help you step into the professionalism that it takes to be successful at coaching as well. Ted, what were you going to say?
Pardon me. Well, Marissa got me excited. I have not really approached, so the idea of making proposals. I haven't been making any proposals. I've been sort of talking it safe with people I know and comfortable with. All of a sudden, like, I know I need to crack into the business realm, and I'm working on a Harrison assessment thing and some tools to be able to go in there. But okay, it's time to start knocking on doors at bigger businesses and getting coaching gigs that way.
That's right. And you've been ready to do this for a while, Ted.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been talking for months now. You are ready and you're poised to do it. You can do it. Good deal.
Thank you.
Yeah. Jill, I saw your hand.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. I think that who do I want to coach? You know, like I had somebody call today, and honestly, I'm not sure it's a good fit. But of course, you know, you want to go for it. Obviously, it's another conversation. Hopefully, we'll have, and I'll figure it out. But I think that gave me a little bit more of a grounding, so that was good. And I like that prelim questions. I like that a lot. I'm going to use that.
Good. Good.
Yeah.
I'm glad that that's helpful for you. And thinking about, even if the person that you spoke with isn't a good fit, you can always say, you know, so-and-so, I have a coach that I think would be a great fit for you, and refer them to somebody else, because that also opens the door for other coaches to refer people to you. So just because we might not be the best fit for somebody, it doesn't mean we couldn't coach them. We don't really want to, or we're not as excited. Someone else is their coach. And when you do that, that's another great way to business build and to really serve the potential client.
Yeah. And I need to build more of that community.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Community with coaching is really important. Again, we're by ourselves most of the time, and it's great when we have a group and people to surround us. Good. One more. Who else? What'd you get? Adam.
I really like the question. How do you get in your own way for some of the intro questions? I've been putting a different spin on that with what might get in the way. That's more external. I like the internal focus on that, and you get to learn more about people with a question like that than having the external focus.
Yeah. And that's always what it is. We're coaching the soul line, the who you're being, rather than the goal line, which is the what are you doing? Because it always comes out of the who you're being, the what we're doing. So it was great to see everyone today. Really excited to be able to see you all next month, but it will be Christy that's going to be here. I will be in Hawaii. She's going to be here. And Christy, go ahead and talk a little bit about what it is that you are going to be debuting for them.
Of course. So I'm kind of the systems gal. So I'm going to be teaching coaches of what systems I recommend, systems that are all in one, and also just piecemeal, because that works better for some people. But since we brought up the calendar thing, I'm going to actually also bring in my productivity coaching, and we'll talk about time management for coaches as well. So it's going to be a 2-part topic.
Yeah, and Christy is excellent at what she does, so don't miss that one. Thank you, everyone, for coming, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the Facebook group. If you need anything in between, just reach out. And yeah, have a good night, everybody.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks very much.
Take care.
Bye.